Tennessee's Wild Side is a presentation of the Jackson Foundation.
The Indonesian islands are about 10,000 miles from Tennessee. The volcanic mountains, heavy swamps, and shallow seas make the geography and wildlife habitat much different than we have here. Even so, we now have a living connection to those islands.
My name is Dale McGinnity. I'm the curator of ectotherms at the Nashville Zoo. Ectotherms are reptiles, fish, and bugs.
The scaly creature in the grass next to Dale is among the largest animals he has ever brought into the zoo. A 9-foot-long Komodo dragon weighing in at 200 pounds.
This is little Sebastian. The staff named him. He's just a totally laid-back, great dragon. He was born in Czechoslovakia about 14 years ago. And we've got Agnes and Olivia, which are two females in the back. We got them as babies, have been raising them for about 12 or 13 years in preparation for this exhibit. Come on.
Dale's relationship with this reptile is both affectionate and respectful.
Komodo dragons just have such distinctive personalities. Once they get to be adults, they don't have any real predators on the island. So they can become pretty tame, but once something snaps in their brain for food, they're a completely different animal and will try to eat you. And that's what's happened in several zoos where there's been fights that could have caused fatalities, but people were just lucky to barely get out. So we have a 2-person policy, always a shield between us and the dragon. So like right now, he wouldn't try to bite me, but I always keep a shield right here anyway. And he doesn't mind getting rubbed at all. He actually, I think he kind of likes it. It's hard to tell whether a lizard really likes it.
And despite the potential risk, helping preserve and protect the endangered Komodo dragons is an opportunity Dale is excited to experience.
I really love Komodo dragons. I liked them since I was a kid when I saw a stuffed one. They weren't really in zoo collections until the 80s when some were given to the National Zoo and the Cincinnati Zoo as presidential gifts from the Indonesian government.
Those stuffed Komodo dragons Dale saw as a child were at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City and are still on display to this day. The exhibit dates back to 1926. That's when naturalist William Douglas Burton made an expedition on behalf of the museum to the Komodo Islands in what is now Indonesia. It was there he observed and captured video in the wild of the world's largest lizards. While the giant reptiles may remind you of Godzilla, tales from Burton's adventure reportedly helped inspire his friend, Marion C. Cooper, to make the movie King Kong in 1933. That such cinema with loud screaming would emanate from a haunting island habitat is no real surprise to Dale McGinnity.
When we went to Komodo, it did seem like the sort of land of the lost and where dinosaurs would be. And Komodos are found in the national park on Rincha, Komodo, Gili Motan, and the Big Island, which is Flores, just in a few national parks on the northern side and the extreme western side of Flores.
It was back in the 90s, and the young boy inspired by stuffed Komodos had grown up to be a scientist. He worked with a pharmaceutical company in an effort to create an antibiotic from dragon blood.
Komodo dragons carry really lethal bacteria in their mouths. The pharmaceutical company thought that they may carry something special in their blood that kept them from getting sick from those bacteria. But they could never figure out how to synthesize it, so they couldn't make an antibiotic out of it. But I wish I could have gone to that place like 30,000 years ago. There was a pygmy elephant that only got about 5 feet tall, and there was another species of human, Homo florensis, that was just discovered in the 80s, and National Geographic wrote an article and called them the Hobbit people because they only got to be about 3.5 feet tall.
Like those two species, Komodo dragons could easily disappear from the earth.
They are endangered. there's only 3,000 to 5,000 dragons left in the wild.
Those survivors are primarily in Indonesia's national parks, where preservation efforts are supported by zoos from around the world.
And over the last 2 years, the Nashville Zoo has donated over $100,000 to that group, which has allowed them to get a boat. It's going to save them a ton of time. It's going to allow them to do a lot more research than they were able to do before.
And the breeding of Komodo dragons in zoos is part of a long-term insurance plan for a worst-case scenario.
Komodo Island is in the Ring of Fire, so it's all volcanic. There's a chance that a whole bunch of volcanic eruptions could cause a mass mortality event on Komodo, on all those islands. An introduced predator or disease, it just makes sense to have an assurance population somewhere else. And so we're going to be doing research on their eyesight, which is something that we can do in zoos. We've designed an exhibit that should allow for a lot of propagation. We're growing up 2 males together. Once they get big enough, it's usually the males that sort of hang out together in the wild. Hopefully in 4 years, we'll have 3 big male Komodo dragons on exhibit. They'll be interacting, maybe a little bit of combat.
The Nashville Zoo now has the largest Komodo dragon exhibit in the United States. But beyond conservation, its purpose is focused on entertainment and education.
I couldn't be happier with this exhibit. I think the most important thing we do as a zoo is get kids interested in wildlife. That's not something sort of different than what they'd see in a book or watch on a TV or a computer monitor, seeing it in real life. So hopefully, these dragons in this beautiful exhibit will get kids interested in wildlife and become future conservationists.